Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. We talk all things talents in Connecticut. And tonight's show, I'm pleased to have, as I go into now the NVL a little bit, I've been kind of all around doing softball and baseball and other sports around the state. But I'm heading to the Naugatuck Valley League, which I'm very familiar with broadcasting basketball and football. And I'm pleased to have on Ryan Slack from Derby. He's been there for his entire life and kind of is a Derby lifer, if you want to put it that way. Ryan, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
When we look at kind of the Derby baseball team, I don't know if I mentioned that before. Ryan does play for Derby. He's been a part of the program for many years. And with you being kind of a senior, right? When you think about just with everything coming in, your class is the last one in terms of that was really affected by COVID with everything. Do you realize that?
Yeah, totally. I always think about it all the time, missing my freshman year. Derby would have been pretty good that year, so I always think about missing out on that year.
Now, when we look at just that overall perspective, right? You talk about your freshman year, and I've talked to many seniors how that the first year, even 2 years for some, was a little bit wonky because you were taking classes. I don't know what Derby did, but I know for certain districts, they'd go to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, half day Friday. It depended on various factors. For you, when did it feel in your eyes normal where you felt like an actual high school student and not it being wonky?
Probably when we went full time back into school and finally took the masks off. And yeah, just finally getting back into sports and being able to go places and whatnot. So yeah.
Do you feel like too that with everything that happened with that being able to have sports, right? You and I were just talking about how you watch hockey and everything, and even that was kind of weird just because of no fans and some fans, etc. um do you believe that having sports kind of helped give you not so much an out, but it gave you an opportunity to get away from all of that stuff and allowed you to focus on something else?
Yeah, 100%. Sports 100%. I would say an outing for me. It's a great way to just get away from everything, especially during COVID times. There's something to do.
Now, when we look at again to put in perspective kind of what you've done at Derby, you've been a very productive player. And I know you're going to play college ball, which coincidentally enough, and maybe it was because I was having you on today, but they were on ESPN and they were number two. The center fielder who you told me, and I appreciate you telling me, is a Connecticut kid. It's always good to see Connecticut baseball players doing their thing. He's from Windsor. When you saw that, what was your first reaction?
I actually so in this winter, I went up to UMass Boston to do an overnight, and Breon Parker, the kid who made the catch, was actually the one who had me over. So he introduced me to the campus life and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty amazing seeing him on Sports Center and making that grab.
Did you text him? I don't know if you have his number, but did you text him and say, "Bro, you're on ESPN right now"?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool moment for him.
And I guess he made another catch like that early, or I
He
guess it
did,
was
yeah.
this last
Earlier,
weekend, right?
yeah, exactly. He at Nichols, he jumped over the fence and he robbed a home run and brought it back. So
He's a walking highlight reel.
exactly.
Now, when we look at kind of just the whole, dynamic, right, of your time at Derby and looking at, and we'll get to your college aspects later on. Um, when did you feel like with the game of baseball where the game started to slow down for you?
I would say this past fall actually. My prior years during high school, I kind of struggled. I don't know why, but I feel like I would always feel a lot of pressure on myself and I would kind of get in my head. And this fall, I really just started to feel open with the game and starting to have more fun, bringing that over to this season where I'm having just a lot of fun playing as hard as I can, help my team win.
You mentioned the fun and just trying to, it sounds like to me being relaxed. Do you think some of that has to do with the fact, A, that you've committed to a college, so that I'm sure takes a lot of stress off of you, but also, too, and I think Swerve is a big part of this, how he coaches, because I was under him. I was the pitching coach for Naugatuck for a year, many, many summers ago. He has a way of being able to kind of keep everything loose and also be one of the guys in a lot of ways, right? So, do you think him being there helps with the fact of you being able to have your woosah moments?
100%. Swerve loves to have fun all the time. And same thing with our assistant coach, Sal Frashino. He's always been there for me and always wanted to do anything he could for me. And having fun is one of the things we love to do at Derby.
Now, I understand that Derby baseball's had some tough years, and I'm sure that it's hard because losing, let's be honest, I hate losing. I'm sure you hate losing. I'm sure everybody on Derby does not like losing. But I
Mhm.
feel like even last year and then obviously this year, there's been a lot of growth. I've seen it. I've talked to coaches. It's there. Do you see it, Ryan, the improvement from this team?
100%. Coming from sophomore year, we only had 2 wins, and last year going to 7 wins and just barely missing the state tournament. Now coming to this year, playing pretty well. Yeah, we've seen lots of improvement.
I always look at kind of teams like in the NFL. I don't know if you watch NFL or not, but when you see teams go from 2 wins to 10 wins, you kind of look at, okay, how did that happen? Sometimes it's the players, it's the coaches, scheduling, it's a multitude of things. But high school sports, it's kind of the growth of the players. What were they from when they were sophomores, juniors? What was it like? Did they play a lot when they were young? And I don't know the dynamic with you guys from your sophomore year, but to go from 2 to 7 is a huge jump, right? Especially
Mhm.
too with how good the copper division is. Um, have you noticed that jump with the team from your sophomore year, obviously going to 7 wins last year, and then I know the season's early this year, but it sounds like you guys are making waves.
Yeah, so I mean, kids like Max Neto, he's a junior now. He's made crazy improvement. Same thing with Alex Engem, one of our biggest players, and Momo Ortiz, just contributing every game for us. It's very important for them to contribute for us.
Now you mentioned Neto. I had his older brother Ty on. He was a catcher. I had him on many years ago. Actually, I think right around the time that COVID started. He was a very good catcher, and at the time, Boehner I think was at Derby. So I remember him. He recommended him to come on. Great kid, and I'm sure his younger brother is also
Mhm.
a very good player from what it sounds like. Um, when we look at kind of the dynamic, right, of high school baseball, it's built around, in my opinion, for the NVL. There's a lot of teams that can mash, but I've noticed the arms are kind of catching up, right? There's a lot of high octane arms in the NVL. For Derby, how are they built as a baseball team?
So right now, I wouldn't say we have a main arm, and we haven't had that for the past 2 years. So we have guys like myself who I don't really pitch anywhere else except for high school because I have to. Alex Engem is our one of our main guys, and Max Neto has been throwing really well for us this year. So we kind of just cycle between us three mainly so far.
So if you're not pitching, where else are you playing?
I'm playing short.
Playing shortstop, so that makes sense. Typically, the shortstops are the guys who are I've noticed
Mhm.
will pitch at times
Yeah,
because playing shortstop sometimes would be the most no disrespect, but the most athletic player will play shortstop. That's kind of what
Mhm.
I you
Yeah.
know. So when we think about, and you mentioned some of the arms, you mentioned how it's not just one arm, it's a multitude of arms. As a lineup goes, and I know how Swerve likes to build his lineup on power, and I don't know if you guys have a full octane offense with a lot of home run power, but talk to me about that lineup a little bit for Derby.
Yeah, so our lineup is a little unbalanced, I would say, because towards the bottom of the lineup we have a little unexperienced players. We have a few freshmen that start for us actually, so it's good to see them getting their reps in and getting playing time in because it's really good for us. They're the future of our program. But
Mhm.
the top half of our lineup is very experienced, very good. Um, so our leadoff batter, Momo Ortiz, he's probably one of the fastest guys in the NVL. Whenever he gets on, he's scoring. So yeah, and actually my brother, he's been batting second a lot, and he's been putting a lot of barrels on balls. So the top half of our lineup is very skilled.
The top half of the lineup is always the most important thing, right? Because obviously it kind of gets the train going. But and with you guys being 3-5, there's still 12 plus games to go. So a lot of time for the bottom half to kind of, as you said, get acclimated. Um, do you believe that at the second half of the lineup, the bottom half of the lineup can continuously improve? Because it sounds like there's some young kids, maybe either now out of varsity experience, youth,
Mhm.
etc. If they kind of get it going, you're talking about a complete lineup.
Yeah, 100%. Making the jump from middle school baseball right into varsity baseball is a totally different thing. Yeah, it just if they could start contributing, I would say a little more. Um, I would say our lineup is very dangerous.
Now, the guy, and I don't know if it's interchangeable, if Swerve is having different players. at the bottom half of the lineup, but do they realize that if they can, and I'm not trying to disrespect them and say, oh, they got to pick it up, they're slacking. I'm sure they're not.
100%.
But do they realize that if they just can, make their improvements and continuously work, this lineup could be very good because especially in the state tournament time, because I think you guys are in class S, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
So in class S, I mean, every class is difficult, but once you get in, I've noticed in baseball, there was a team many years ago when Watertown had Guerrera, who now is in the minor leagues with the Mets. I think it was a 32 seed. I think it was either Law or Foreign. They just got into the playoff and they won the entire thing. And I think they had 8 or 9 wins. They just got in. So you talk about winning and just getting there and then going from there. Do they realize that?
I would say so. I mean, they're still young, 100%, and them playing defense and whatnot. It's just anything they could do for us is really helping. Like any way to get on base, walks, anything at all. But just honestly, just putting the ball in play. At the end of the day, that's what it is. High school baseball. You just got to put the ball in play, put pressure on the defense.
And when you sent me your stats, I noticed, and I didn't ask you how many strikeouts to walks that you've had, but it sounds like to me from the average and just in my conversations I've had with Boehner and some other coaches, you don't strike out that much.
Yeah, actually, I struck out for my first time this season on Friday against Watertown.
So that you probably were pretty mad after that, huh?
Yeah, I struck out looking. The ball was a little high, but can't do anything about CIAC umps.
Now, is that something that has always been ingrained in you as far as, because we know how the game has evolved, right? And I don't know if you are a big believer in the launch, trying to be able to loft the ball, get underneath it, trying to hit some tanks, especially how I'm sure with you watching Major League Baseball, there's a lot of strikeouts. I was watching the Yankees today. It's like watching nothing but strikeouts. They, again, I think out of their 10 home games, they scored 3 or less runs in 8 of their 10. The consistency offense is not there if you're striking out and not putting the ball in play, like you said. Is that something that you've always believed where if there's one thing I'm not going to do in a game, it's strike out when I'm at bat? What's his you?
100%, 100%. I try to avoid striking out as much as possible. Just especially when I get to two strikes, I try to shorten up and just try to put the ball in the bat and just try to put it in play and try to see what happens. Honestly.
And as you mentioned with high school, just high school teams in general, I mean, they're not the pros. Even college teams make errors. If you put the ball in play and force them to have to make a defensive play,
Exactly.
that's half the battle right there.
100%. I totally agree. Especially in today's high school baseball, we see errors left and right. It's unfortunate. Like, the fields aren't in great shape, some of them. So putting the ball in play and putting pressure on defense is what it's all about.
Have any of the younger batters or maybe even guys at the top of the lineup, do they pick your brain as far as how you approach every at bat?
Yeah, of course. Every at bat is different for me, especially depending on the situation. Um, but once I get to two strikes, I like to get wider in my stance and not really have as big of a stride, and I also choke up. So kind of, and that's been working for me recently, especially in the fall. So kind of just lending that knowledge to players is something I like to do.
Now, with you widening your stance, right, and kind of choking up,
Mhm.
choking up a little bit, does that, without giving up too much, are you able to cover both sides of the plate? Because I would think that when you're facing, higher velocity, better breaking stuff, I would think that they would try to, I would think pitchers would realize that and say, okay, if he's widening his stance, if he's choking up a little bit more than he was in the previous couple pitches, maybe I could expose him on a certain part of the quadrant. Have you been able to work on that?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like doing that, it allows me to be really quick to the ball. So I feel like I have pretty good reaction to get to like say an outside fastball if they want to do that to me.
Is there a certain pitch that even now still gives you trouble?
Probably like high pitches, honestly, because I feel like I used to always just swing at them and totally miss them. Now I don't swing at them as much, especially like high curve balls. I can't really touch them, honestly.
Now, is that something that's tricky to come, when it's coming out of the hand? Or is it where you think that it's going to drop a little bit more or maybe be more towards your wheelhouse, but it stays high? Is it something like that?
Yeah, definitely like that.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit surprised just because a lot of times when I've talked to high school ball players, typically it's the changeup, right? That's the
Mm,
pitch that gives hitters a lot of trouble. but hearing that it's the high pitch, especially for somebody like you who doesn't strike out, is very interesting. And that's also good to hear.
Yeah.
Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on. It's a lot of fun being able to talk with you. As Derby is now in the, we'll say, mid innings of their season, right? 12 games left. You're probably in about the mid half of the third, entering the fourth inning
Mhm.
of the season. Uh, and with how difficult, I mean, I know the Copper division is very good. Oxford's very talented. Seymour's very good. And Sony is always a tough battle with everything going on there. Just talk to me about kind of the outlook for Derby as we enter the later stages of the season.
Yeah, so we're totally just looking to get to our 8-win mark and punch our ticket to the CIAC tournament. That's been our goal now for the past 2 years, and just missing it last year was heartbreaking. But yeah, that's totally our goal. As you said, the Copper division is very tough, and we need to etch out a very good win for ourselves.
And I can't forget Woodland as well. Woodland's in the Copper. Can't forget about them with their high octane team that they've got. I mean, they made a state championship game last year. And what Boehner is doing there is fantastic. He really has
Mhm.
done a fine job with them. Do you know the last time that Derby made a state tournament for baseball?
I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, one of those.
And do you guys know the history with that? Like, do you know
No.
how much that? Do you know how much weight that will carry as far as if you guys can get there, you guys will be. I mean, you guys will be remembered, I think, regardless.
Mhm.
But if you can get to that point, people will talk, especially because again, Derby, as I said in my tweet, is not a very big town by any means. But with you and the rest of the team doing your thing, people will talk about that for years.
100%. I feel like everyone doubts us, and to finally like turn that around, it'll get people looking and talking.
Is there anything in particular as far as this season has gone on, knowing that your final first game, maybe final time at a certain field, has that hit you yet at all?
Yeah, definitely. It's weird seeing this because, I've only played 3 years of high school baseball. Like you said, missing out on my freshman year, it's totally different. I feel like I have one more year left. But yeah, totally going through that process right now.
Looking at how the evolution, right, of your career from even though you missed your freshman year and going through with that lost year, do you almost think that you're technically a year behind, right? When you think about your playing
Yeah.
development, like does that kind of connect in your brain like, wow, I'm technically a year behind, but I'm doing as well as I am. I can improve, but there's still so much as far as in the tank left for me to be able to do my thing. What says you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, there's so much left in the tank for this year and for my next years to come in college. So I'm just really excited to see what's next.
And college ball is always extremely fun to be able, an opportunity to be able to play. You have the opportunity to be able to do that as well. And I know, obviously you're not looking towards college right now because you've got a high school season. There's still a lot to be done at Derby. But when you committed, just talk to me about kind of that moment because that's something I'm sure you'll never forget.
Yeah, it was honestly when I had the offer from UMass Boston and I toured the school and visited, there was kind of no reason for me not to go there. It was just the campus is beautiful, field is beautiful, coaches are amazing. So yeah, that total process, the recruiting process for me went really well and it was a lot of fun to go through.
What was it about UMass, Boston, as far as the program that really attracted you to the program?
So my assistant high school coach, Sal Frashino, he played at Derby and he actually went to UMass Boston. So having him in my corner and kind of not persuading me, but pushing me towards there and just seeing the campus, the fields. The field is a replica of Fenway Park, but it's actually turfed. So it's just amazing.
So it's almost like you're playing on Fenway to a certain degree.
Of course, yeah.
That's awesome. So you sure you don't want to pitch in college just to get that feel once?
Honestly, I mean, I've been doing a lot so far this spring. If there's any reason, of course.
That's awesome to hear that. And it sounds like now, I don't know if there was another school that was talking with you or showed interest, but it seems like to me that UMass was the one that really kind of connected you with you early on.
Yeah, I was a little unsure at first because I had a few other schools I was talking to. And UMass Boston was kind of towards the end of
Mhm.
my recruiting process. And once I was like a little unsure, and then once I got that one, and visited, I was totally like set on it.
I'm sure you know this, Ryan, but there has been a lot of, even again, going back to Derby being a small town, there is a lot of talent, regardless of how small the town is. There's always going to be talented people, talented players, etc. And they always get found one way or another. Do you know that you will be like again next in line as far as another both baseball player but also athlete from Derby to play in college? Like, does that, you know, is that something that you kind of realize like I'm continuing my journey to the next level?
Yeah, coming from Derby, it's very small. So, trying to make any name for myself as I could, it's definitely very important to me following in others' footsteps.
Real quick, Ryan, before I let you go, and again, I appreciate you coming on. Do you have any is there anything you want to share as far as what people should expect from Derby for the rest of the season?
Yeah, just we're a young team, unexperienced team, but we have a lot of doubters out there. So I feel like we could eventually make a run in the tournament if we make it. Once we make it,
There you go. I was about to say, you got to sound a little bit more confident, right?
yes, sir. Of course,
Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun being able to talk with you. Best of luck the rest of this season. Tell Swerve I said hello.
of course, I will.
Now, wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. From our CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.